Welcome back to another episode of the Offer Hustle. I'm your host, DJ, MC, anything behind the mic in a DJ booth. It might be me, Deona Hustle, co-host of Hustle and Shine in the Morning on Kansas City's #1 for that hip hop and R&B, Hot 103 Jams. Big love to NSPN for always producing all of these amazing episodes. And then a shout out to Zoo Studios, who let us host this here each and every week. Also, book your studio time. You needed to do podcast work, you need to do anything, just hit up Zoo Studios and they will get you right. Now, today on the show, I have a very special guest. I was excited about this conversation because I feel like one of the things that I was looking forward to in having a podcast is to have deeper conversations. Like, we have surface level conversations. We talk about gossip. We talk about celebrities. We talk music. That's cool and all. But sometimes you got to really peel back some layers. I'm trying to really dig deep and learn more about myself. And I feel like we can all learn something. Today, you've heard the word LLC, but this ain't LLC. We putting to rest LLC because it's going viral on TikTok. I'm tired of hearing LLC, so we switched it up. You ever heard about an LPC? Licensed Professional Counselor. I got my girl JaMeshia Sykes with me today. Hey.
Hello.
Now, before we talk deep and therapy and all of those things.
Because we're going to go there.
Oh, we're going to go there. I want to start off with a quick icebreaker of just therapy in general.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you these red and green flags.
I am ready. Okay.
So I'm going to run off a couple of maybe scenarios or just situations.
Okay.
And I want you to put that therapy hat on and let me know from your expert opinion.
Okay.
If certain things are red flags or green flags.
Okay.
This
is going to be fun.
The first thing, what are your thoughts on ghosting people when they cause chaos in your life?
Is there an orange one? I'm just kidding. I think it's kind of subjective. I am personally not a fan of ghosting. I think that you can cut someone off, but still have like a conversation, still communicate to them, hey, this is what you did. When you did this is how I felt. That crosses a boundary for me and
gotta go.
Be well. Right.
Be well.
Yeah.
Be blessed. When somebody hits you with a be blessed, you know it's serious.
You know it's over at that point.
Okay, next one. Using social media as an outlet to express your feelings. That one, easy ones.
I know. I feel like some of these, that's so subjective.
Yeah, they are.
I think, again, I have red flag, and this may be just more of a personal thing, but I think that hopefully people have communities, friends, therapists, things like that, where they can absolutely express their feelings maybe in a more confidential space. But also sometimes it is therapeutic for people to share their stories. Sometimes it's inspiring for people going through similar situations. So I guess
it just depends on the situation.
Okay.
A therapist that shares their own experiences during a session.
Again, depends on the context. I would say red flag if they're oversharing. If you feel like your therapist is doing most of the talking or what they're sharing is not relevant to your therapy goals, then a red flag. But a green flag if it's relevant. Maybe there's a lesson here, a message here. It also makes your therapist more relatable, so it can help build that rapport, make them look like a human when you're like, okay, you get it.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
Okay, bonus question. And this isn't really a red flag. This is just a question for you. What are some key things or questions that someone should ask a therapist to kind of ensure that they're the right fit for them?
Ooh, so most therapists do offer a consultation before you book with them officially. So some questions to ask. You want to ask about maybe their therapeutic approach, what their specialties are. You want to ask if they've helped people with similar situations that you're looking to work on. So, hey, I'm working on trauma. What's your experience like with trauma? You want to ask about just their scheduling, how to schedule, how often, just different things like that, and just get to know them a little bit. Maybe ask about their expertise, how long they've been practicing. Some people prefer a seasoned therapist. Some people don't mind someone that's younger and kind of fresh out. But yeah, mostly just asking well, this is what I want to work on. Tell me how you would address this. What's your experience like with this to make sure it's going to be a good fit?
Now, I know you specialized in, at least when you first started off, I know you specialized in supporting teens and adults when it comes to low mood, anxiety, depression, trauma, period. What led you down a path of even studying this?
Yeah. Well, I'm one of those kids that if you look at my report cards, all of my report cards used to say talks too much.
That's crazy. So we twins.
So my teachers, I would love to pull up on y'all and say, hey, that was my gift. You guys were trying to
get.
Yeah, y'all were trying to hold me back. But I always love to talk. So talking to people, just anyone, you can sit me anywhere and we're going to have a conversation. I'm making a bestie before the class is over. But also in high school, I was, I guess, nominated or suggested for this conflict mediator thing.
Really?
Where we mediated our peers, basically. So there was a conflict, come in, and they're like, hey,
so y'all had neighborhood watch at school?
I guess so, yeah. So when they approached me about it, what got me, they were like, oh, you'll go on you'll be trained. So it's like a field trip for 3 days and you'll get pizza. And I was like, oh, I want to get out of class for 3 days and get some pizza.
Square pizza.
I'm with it. I'm all the way. Sign me up. But I actually ended up liking it. I like how problems could be resolved, via conversation. I also really found it interesting how they would be describing the same situation, but they had different perspectives, different mindsets. And I was like, how is that?
How did you all perceive it so differently?
Right, exactly. You guys are saying the same thing, but you're also saying opposite things.
Yes.
So just things like that, and really get into the root of understanding how some of these conflicts, kids would really open up, and maybe it started at home. They were having a bad day, and they kind of just brought that into school, and then that led to certain conflicts, fights, and things like that. So I found that interesting. I was always into psychology, so I just decided in college, I'm going to do psychology and I'm going to be a counselor.
Yeah.
Also, just knowing that there's not a lot of therapists of color.
Yes.
So I always was like, we need this. This is the cheat code.
Yes.
The Black community, we need it. We haven't always been open to it. So just wanting to normalize it, kind of break the stigma and be provide space for people that are ready to do the work.
Because it's not that many. Well, at least from what I observed in Kansas City, I didn't find that many Black women therapists. That's what I started looking for. As soon as I came to Kansas City, I was like, you know what? I want that. And so I've at least had 2 Black women who were my therapists at one point. And so, and they were all great. And so it's
like
really
a different experience when your therapist is Black. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I feel like I can really be myself.
Yeah.
We spend our time in the world always code switching. I don't want to code switch if I'm coming into the office to talk about my life.
No. I had a client one time was telling me about a conflict she and her husband had about their daughter. I guess he didn't comb their daughter's hair or something before church. And so a Black therapist, you didn't need to explain that to me. I totally understand.
Yeah, you get it.
Why that's upsetting, why that's important. But maybe, if your therapist wasn't Black, you may have had to give your therapist some context. Well,
ain't nobody got time to do that.
Nobody got time for that. You telling me he didn't comb the baby's hair? I get it. I understand. That would have ticked me off too. No need to further explain. So just things like that. It's different.
And you're also certified, you're a certified yoga teacher.
Yeah, so yoga is also my baby. So I do yoga. I like to
I'm going to have to come to a class.
There's a connection between your mind and your body. So whenever you're stressed, your body totally feels it. Some people, there's tension in their their shoulders. Sometimes you get headaches, maybe your hips, your leg, you're just tense. So yoga's a great way to relieve some of that tension, stretch your body out.
I need to do that.
Yeah, and you can shut your mind off too because you're dying on the mat. So you don't have time to think about your stressors. You're I have to focus. I need to squeeze this and keep my balance here. So it's a nice escape.
And in 2018, you started your own practice.
Yeah.
Now that's big.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Congratulations on that because that's risk that you took, and you were like, you know what, I'm doing this. I'm in this thing.
Yeah.
I don't care what nobody got to say. How did that come about?
Okay. Well. Backstory there. So I always wanted to do so first I guess it started with I wanted to homeschool my kids.
Okay.
So I knew that if I was going to homeschool.
Esai, you mentioned that you would homeschool.
Yeah. So if I was going to homeschool, then I knew that I needed a flexible job so that I could set my own hours, work when I wanted to.
Yeah.
I also realized that a lot, there wasn't a lot of Black therapists in private practice.
Yeah.
Even me at the time, I was working at a domestic violence shelter. And then before that, I was working at a community health center. So I wasn't super accessible to everyone. It was if you're low income or if you're on Medicaid or if you're in a domestic violence situation, then you can meet with me. But I knew that there was more people needed to meet with me. So I was okay, I'm going to start a private practice, set my own schedule so that I can homeschool the kids and make myself just more accessible to the community as a whole.
I love that.
So that's kind of where that started.
So you still homeschooling?
Yep, still homeschool. The kids are 10, 6 and 3, and I actually started my therapy practice when my 6-year-old was like 3 or 4 months. So it was a huge jump.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they're happy to have mom at home.
Yeah, they do. They like it. We talk about like their mental health too. How you doing? How you feeling?
Good.
Yeah, they just know.
You starting them off right.
Yeah, that like mom helps people feel better, and I'm like, it's exactly what mom does. So, so yeah, they get free therapy. They don't even know it.
Yeah, they are. You're going to have to bill them one day.
I'm probably.
And when they hit 18, just send and be like, here you go.
Here you go, right here.
I take PayPal, Zelle, Cash App.
All the things. Yeah.
Bitcoin. Because by that time, Bitcoin will be taken
off. Yeah, just however you need to. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, just send that over for sure.
Yeah.
Now, when we talked about the things that you specialize in, one of the things I did not mention was you supporting others when it comes to unworthiness.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like when you hear unworthiness, you think of just low self-esteem. Is what I at least thought of. That's what I'm thinking of. You just not feeling like you that person or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you start talking more before we even started this, you mentioned perfection, being a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, unfortunately, that's one thing that I feel like I am a little bit. So now we might turn this into a therapy session because I want to dig deep into what that means and how does being a perfectionist connect to unworthiness.
Yeah. So perfectionism, one of the roots is just feeling like you're not good enough and worrying that other people will also see that. And then there's that judgment, there's that rejection, or there's that ridicule.
Yeah.
So we seek to be perfect just to prevent people from seeing us how we see ourselves. So if we see ourselves as I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, I can't do it, then we try to compensate for that with perfectionism. So that is one of the things that I work on, just people like feeling like they're good enough. Like what you're doing is okay. Perfect doesn't exist. We can be great. We can be excellent. But perfection it's not a real thing. It's not attainable. And even if you get it, typically it's not sustainable, or you risk a lot to get it. Yeah, maybe you're on the outside, things are perfect, but on the inside, you're stressed, you're anxious, you're worried,
tense.
like you're tense, right? You're not sleeping at night. Your eating habits are all over the place. So maybe you sacrificed a lot to get it. Was it worth it?
That's a fair question. What's your therapeutic style or kind of your healing process? I think that's the right way to ask it.
Yeah, so like my therapeutic approach.
There we go.
There it is. Yes. I would say I'm more like eclectic. So just really showing up, holding space, very client-centered. I ask questions. I tell my clients, I don't have all the answers. I do not know, but I can ask really good questions. I can, point out things that seem to be reoccurring patterns. We can talk about how maybe this is connected to this, but we do that through conversation. Also teaching them just coping skills and things like that. So I would say I'm kind of like, because I use yoga and meditation and breathing. So there's like somatic parts of my work, just bringing awareness to their body and how they are feeling their feelings, like literally feeling their feelings. Also some CBT. So just challenging their ways of thinking.
You said CBT, not CBD.
No.
Watch it.
No. Although some people may use that as a coping skill. So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
Which is just pointing out just irrational thoughts or problems in your thinking, things like that. So what's going on? Why do you assume that? How did we get there? Like you're making assumptions. So different things like that. Also, I don't know. Like I said, I'm eclectic. I kind of just pull from everywhere.
I like that because it doesn't sound like you're stuck in one direction. And then you have different clients that might need something that's unorthodox.
So exactly. So just because someone may be working through depression doesn't mean that I'm going to treat all of them the same. Right? So it's eclectic. Like, well, let's talk about like how that shows up for you. How does your depression hinder you? And let's work through that. And then sometimes I'm just super solution focused too. Like, okay, we spent a lot of time talking about the problem. Now, what are we going to do next? What actions are you going to take? How are we going to start to resolve these issues?
Now, is there such a thing? I want to talk to you about relationships of people being a little bit too or overly woke or emotionally intelligent for their own good, and that kind of ruins their relationships. Is there such a thing as that?
I think sometimes people can be overthinkers, where they, I'll tell my clients, not everything is a think piece. Not everything is a thesis. Not everything needs to be broken down into, oh my God, this was traumatic. Some things just they are what they are. So I think if you're a person that overthinks or that assumes,
Well, I don't assume, but I will. I will think about something a couple times.
Yeah, and especially if you don't check in with that person, if you're just believing everything that you're thinking in your relationship, like, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're thinking this about me, or they did this on purpose, they don't care about me, and you never bring those concerns to the person to get some reassurance or to figure out, then yeah, that's problematic. Because you just created this thing in your head and you don't even know what's going on.
You didn't even have a conversation about it.
Yeah, you never had a conversation to know if that's really what's going on.
Since you've experienced people laying their trauma on you, and of course, you know, we all have our own type of trauma, whether it's extreme or, you know, whatnot. There's something that causes us to act a certain way. I don't know if trauma might be the best word for it.
Yeah, there's big T's and then there's little T's.
Like that. There we go. And then you got white T's. We're not talking about that right. But when it comes to that, do you think that some people use their trauma as a way to get out of accountability? Do you think, because I feel like when I say that, I mean like maybe, well, this happened to me, this is the way I am, I'm never changing it. It is what it is. It happened to me, I'm gonna let it.
Yeah. So I do see that, and I challenge my clients on that often. I'm like, your mental health, your trauma, it gives context, but it doesn't excuse your behavior. So we can understand like why you reacted that way, why you know, your initial thoughts went there, but it doesn't excuse poor behavior. And a part of the work, a part of what you learn in therapy is that self-awareness so that you can choose how to react, how to respond to certain situations. But no, you don't just get to walk around and it's like, oh, I had this terrible experience and that gives me the right to be a terrible person. No.
It don't work like that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Do you have moments where you feel like when you're in those sessions or even in your own life where you're just having these moments where you're like, ooh, it's a line of this and that, but I really am not too sure how to maybe steer. How do you kind of navigate that? Because people are like, I don't want to make it seem like therapists, we just put everything on your lap and just be like, fix it. Because it's not what you guys do.
Not
you all are really more so along with us for the journey of life and just kind of helping us put the pieces together.
Absolutely.
Is how I view it.
Yeah.
So when you're kind of in that situation of trying to maybe help steer, how do you manage that?
I just let them know like, hey, I'm at a fork in the road. So here's an option. And like, what do you think about that? What are some pros and cons to maybe handling it this way? Okay, well, here's another option. What are some pros and cons? And then asking them too. Well, like, what have you tried in the past? Have you been in a similar situation and what's gotten you out? Or maybe you were in a similar situation and it went all left. So like, what did you do then? So let's not repeat those behaviors, but really just probing, just figuring it out, because there's no one way. There's risk and reward. So just figuring out, all right, so what risk are you willing to take? What step are you willing to take? And we'll come back next week and see how that went.
Regroup.
Yeah, and if it was great, then let's keep moving that way. And if not, okay, let's pivot and try something else.
Now that the weather has broken, like I feel like the weather's out. My producer, his toes are out. He's living his best life. Do you think that when it comes to the weather, that affects moods to the point where seasonal depression is really a thing? I've been hearing more people talk about it, so I just wanted to get your perspective on it.
I think so, especially it gets dark at like 5 o'clock, so many things are not available to us in the winter. We're not socializing as much because it's dark, it's cold. We do need sunlight. You know, I tell my clients we are like plants. We need fresh air, sunlight, and water in order to be well. So we're not getting a ton of that in the winter time. Also, it's holiday season, which for some people, the holidays are not joyful. So there's triggers, there's grief, there's all sorts of things associated with that can bring us down. But it's definitely a thing.
When you're in a situation where you have a friend, so like for me or anybody that's watching this, it's like, man, I know that my friend is kind of going through this right now. Maybe they're depressed. Maybe they're just down, low mood, whatnot. What are some signs for us to like pick up on that? And then what are some ways that we can just kind of help them get back to themselves?
Yeah. So if it's a friend, I'm assuming you know this friend pretty well. So you may notice some changes maybe in like how often you guys are communicating, if they're hanging out, if they're declining your invitations, or you guys may be hanging out more and you're like, girl, you last these last couple weekends, you've been getting blacked out drunk. Like, what's going on? Like, this is different for you.
That's important.
Yeah, this is different.
Pay attention,
maybe, your friend is like calling off of work. And so you're like, every time I call you, you're not at work. Like, what are you doing? Maybe they're sleeping more. So just noticing changes in like their everyday functioning and then checking in with them. Okay, this is what I noticed. I'm not assuming. So like, is there something going on? And just reminding them that I'm here for you if you want to talk about it. Letting them know therapy is out there. Here's some things, or here's some books that you can read. But really just noticing changes and listening to what they say. If they sound just hopeless, depressed, or maybe everything is good, but you're like, hold on, your mom just died.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, hold on, like this is not tracking.
Yeah, it's not adding up.
Yeah, how are you so joyful? And not, like your mom just passed away. So just different things like that. Just having that conversation of, hey, I'm noticing and I'm wondering. I'm curious.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm not judging and I'm not assuming, but Absolutely. I'm curious. I want to know, like, how are you? How are you?
Well, you mentioned grief, which was a perfect segue. When it comes to that, is it when do you know to give people the space to feel it versus kind of just stepping in to be like, okay, you got to talk about this.
Yeah.
Is there a line of ready to talk, or I'm going to just get my distance and let them feel it?
I know. And it's so subjective. It's going to vary from person to person. Some people are ready, as soon as it happens, they want to talk. They need that community. They need that support. Some people want to retreat. And not deal with anyone for a while. So it's really just asking, your friend, your family, like, what do you need? How can I show up for you? And then still making it a point. If they say like, oh, I need some space, then it's like, okay, but I'm still going to check on you every 3 days.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm going to give you some space, but if you don't hit me back, I'm going to pull up on day 4 just to make sure that like you're fine.
Yeah.
But it's so subjective because grief is one of those things. It's like an individual experience, and you could lose someone 5 years ago and it feels like it was yesterday. Yeah.
When it comes to grief too, I feel like you mentioned, everybody feels it differently.
Yeah.
It does pop up because no matter how long ago, how recent it is, it will pop up and feel like it was yesterday. But what is kind of some of the words of wisdom or advice that you would give someone that is in a situation where they are dealing with grief? However, they're also in the process of feeling like they're losing memories of that person, and it feels like, or the presence of that person, because time is passing.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I'm grieving this person, but now I'm starting to forget some of those key things that made me feel close to them.
This makes me think of like survivor's guilt. Sometimes I have clients that feel guilty because they're still here on this side of the dirt, living their life. They feel like they should stop living or stop enjoying life. So maybe they're choosing to kind of be depressed, feeling like this is how I'm honoring so-and-so. But really it's just a matter of like feeling your feelings. Like, first of all, acknowledging like, this is how I feel. I'm sad. I'm anxious. I'm stressed. I'm angry, even is something that comes up in grief. And knowing that it is a part of the process. Having maybe a memorabilia box where you have things that helps you remember like their face and their voice and just different things like that. But it is a part of the process. We're not going to remember every single detail. And in some cases, like we don't want to, we don't need to. Maybe it's too painful to go back and revisit that. So
Is there a way to get that back? Because I know that I always hear that there's a thing such as trauma blocking and you forgetting certain things because it's built to trauma. So switching off from grief and more into trauma. Is there a way to get that back? Or
some people just, I don't know, I guess like LSD, I don't know. Like some people like go on a trip and they're like, oh, I went on this trip and I remembered all these things. So things like that. Or sometimes there's just like random triggers. Maybe you're in a grocery store and somebody walks by you and they like have this scent to them. And then you just remember like, oh man, like my grandfather used to wear that, and you get that memory back in that moment. So intentionally, I don't know if we can sit and like intentionally recall those things. It may just be like something that triggers us
happens.
to think about something that we haven't thought about. Exactly. Like, oh wow, I haven't thought about that memory in a while. But yeah.
Okay. You touched on this earlier about when we talked about mental health awareness. It's a big deal. I feel like now versus maybe 5 years ago, it's more out there. But then it comes with the good and the bad. Meaning you get on social media and you see the overuse of gaslighting. Narcissists. All of these things. So when you have your therapy hat on and you know that's your life. Do you see that the mental awareness is helping? The mental health awareness is helping being more of a hot topic? Or do you feel like it's kind of getting a little bit thrown around everywhere when you look online?
Yeah, I think it's both. Yes, and because multiple things can be true at once.
Yes.
So, yes, it is helping. And also it is watering down like some of these terms or overusing some of these terms. So when I have new clients, and I'm asking about their mental health history, and they're like, oh, like I'm anxious, I'm depressed. I'm like, did a licensed professional diagnose you that? Right. Or is this you took a quiz or somebody on TikTok?
WebMD.
Yeah, or somebody on TikTok was describing symptoms and you're like, that's me.
Yeah.
Because I do think that there's a lot of self-diagnosing now, which, just comes with the times. Yeah. But yeah, it is. There is more conversation, and that conversation can go either way.
Yeah. But people do be overusing it.
They
on
do.
social media. It was a year where gaslighting was just the trigger word on Twitter. I'm like, look, I mean, I threw it around too, being funny. I was like, you're gaslighting me.
Yeah.
You know you didn't do something.
And then it takes it away from the people who are actually experiencing it. Yeah, like y'all, it's like crying wolf. You guys are using it so much that the people who are actually being gaslit, we're looking at them. Yeah, we're like, are you though? We're kind of skeptical, or maybe the services are not available to them because you guys are, using it so much.
Since you've been practicing therapy, is that how you would word it?
Therapy, counseling. Yeah.
What have been some of the biggest misconceptions you've seen people have on the outside about your career?
About my career? Oh, I think people think that like therapy, you come and you just cry the whole hour. I have some clients that do come and cry. Yeah. Crying is always welcome, but it's not that. It's not that. Sometimes you come and we're talking about your week. Sometimes we're laughing. Sometimes we are like writing things down. We're game planning. I think people also think that you can only go to therapy if you've experienced a crisis. So I like to think of therapy as more of like a proactive thing you can do for yourself. But a lot of people use it in more of a reactive state. Like, oh my God, my relationship ended, or, I've been having these thoughts about self-harm. They come when they're in a crisis, when it's chaos. There. Yeah, so I think that's a misconception. You can go at any time. It's not just for people that are in a crisis. I also think people come to therapy expecting your therapist to give you advice, and most therapists would say we don't. Right.
Because then if I just give you plain advice, like go do this, go talk to him, you come back and you like,
I did it.
What's next?
Right. No. So it's teaching you, how to be self-sufficient. It's teaching you, to think, to have that self-awareness, to work through things differently than you have in the past. I tell my clients that really the difference between me and you is just our coping skills. I have the same issues, same problems. Yeah. I've been through some things, and I'm just coping with it maybe a little better than you in healthier ways. But we don't give advice. We don't have all the answers. When y'all know, you let me know. And we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out together.
Yeah, but it's a conversation. It's like an enlightening conversation.
Now, I know some massage therapists, they have go-to people that they're like, you know what, I'm going to go to them because, I need to reset myself too. When it comes to being a counselor and therapy, do you have someone that you're like, you know what, I'm getting a lot of people that are putting on me. Yeah. I have to have a way to just kind of, keep it moving and flowing. Do you have someone else that you see, or do you have different outlets?
Yeah, well, both. Like therapists need therapists. So just having a mentor, having a therapist, somebody that I can process with, kind of dump it on her. Like, thank you, girl. I'll see you later. And then like my friends, family, just having my own community, my own self-care, things like that. I tell my clients I have really good boundaries. So yeah, I'm like, hey, I don't have the capacity for that. I'm not doing that. My friends, they obviously know I'm a therapist. And so when they call, like most friends, like they may want to vent or something, but I've kind of, trained them to ask first. Don't just be like, hey girl, and then just go into it. Because maybe I had a long day. So it's like, hey, do you have space? Do you have the capacity to like hear this? I want to talk about X, Y, and Z.
I like that.
Because maybe I don't, or maybe I do. And I'm like, okay, yeah, what's up? Talk to me.
I like that idea of asking your friends, because what I've learned too is I kind of stopped answering the phone. So
avoidance,
which might avoidance. Yeah. She just like me. Yeah, I avoid things at times, but it's normally because in my head, maybe a year or two ago, probably like 2 years ago, I came to this point where I remember I kept answering the phone at times where I wasn't available. I'm doing stuff, but out of that person or several people, friends, calling, I'm just answering.
Yeah.
And then it ended up being maybe a friend venting. Have no problem with friends venting, but it might have been at a time where it's like
you wasn't available.
I wasn't available. I'm doing work. And my mom had told me one day, she was like, well, if you keep answering like your phone, your friends are probably going to think that you're available because you answered the phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's common sense, right? Like I never thought about that. So I was like, you know what? So I stopped answering the phone.
Dude, it's kind of like ghosting, right? What I said earlier.
I have ghosted before.
Yeah, where it's like maybe I'm not going to say better, but another option is just to, again, like just teach your friends or answer the phone and be like, hey, or if they start going, you're like, okay, wait.
Hold on.
I was just making sure there wasn't an emergency. I really I'm in the middle of something. Let me call you back, you know, in a couple hours or tomorrow, and we can like talk more about it. Yeah.
And that's what I've started to do. Like maybe in the last year is to just kind of like send a quick text and be like, oh girl, I'm a da-da-da-da.
Yeah, I got this going on.
And a lot of my friends are very understanding because they're just as busy.
But then when you don't, like the ghosting, then I'm forced to think of like, well, what's going on? Are you mad at me? Did I do something? You just don't like me no more?
I'm not ghosting no friends. Yeah. If we're really friends, to me, ghosting you is weird. Yeah. I'm never gonna, like that's
I'm gonna
different.
let you know where you had me messed up
Now,
at.
if it's romantic, you might get ghosted.
Hey.
But that, but when I say ghosting.
Yeah.
I don't mean like me just up and stop talking to you. I mean me telling you that I'm going to stop talking to you. And then me then abiding by that and doing that. Yeah. And some people, like you said, different people align or perceive things differently. But have it's the same situation. But someone over there can be like, oh, this is what happened. And you're like, how you get that?
What happened?
What happened between that?
What? Yeah.
So to many people, I could have maybe ghosted them in the last 10 years. But to me, it's like, well, I kind of let you know.
I let you know what was going on.
That was it.
Yeah. So I wouldn't call that ghosting.
So that's why I said I wouldn't even call that ghosting.
Yeah.
I think, I do avoid sometimes, I ain't gonna lie. Like it's easier, but you have to eventually get to it.
Yeah. I feel like avoiding is temporary. It's easier in that moment.
Yeah.
But then it could create just long-term problems. Because you still have to address it. You still have to come back to it.
Has there ever been a powerful question that you've asked a client that changed the thought process that they had, where they had a real aha moment, like,
Yeah, I like to ask my clients, like I said, I deal with like perfectionists, and with that tends to come a lot of
it sounds like I need to come see you.
Self-criticism, just like their inner dialogue is awful. So some things I ask them is like, well, like, what would you be doing if you loved yourself or if you liked yourself? What would you be doing if you were more confident or if you had less fear? Just taking them out of that space and just giving them a moment to imagine, other options, other choices. Also, again, with self-criticism, we're just so hard on ourselves. Yeah. Asking them, okay, would you say that to, a friend, to your child? Like, you're talking to yourself so negatively. Would you talk to somebody else like that? And they're like, nah. Okay, so why do you feel like you deserve that? Why are you talking to yourself like that? So really shifting that, like, wow, I am not being kind to myself. I'm not showing myself love and grace. Let me do something different.
When it comes to the Black community, and just our relationship with mental health. It's been something, of course, in the last several years. It's been more of a conversation, which is great because we're getting the ball rolling. But when it comes to it, as well as just on the online presence, it being a hot topic, do you feel like people feel that the resources are available to them, or they just feel like I'm not doing it because it wasn't talked about in my traditional home? Yeah, I'm gonna leave it alone.
See, yes, and right. I feel like
things can be true.
We are moving where it is. There are more therapists of color that are available. There's more Black therapists that are available. We're having the conversation, but then there's still like that stigma. Of I was taught, we don't talk about what goes on at home. Yep. I was taught to hold it all in. I was taught that, men don't cry, or, my mom did all these things and she didn't need a therapist. Why do I need a therapist? And just things like that. Yeah, it's both. So a part of therapy is undoing those things, like the rules or the stigma that
you think is normal.
Yeah. I literally will say to my clients, like, you know what? I'm not going to say that's dysfunctional. I'm going to say it's not normal. Okay?
Safe,
I'm not going to go in on your family, your upbringing, and say it's dysfunctional. Respect your mama. But I'm going to say, like, that's not normal.
And we're also taught, with especially being Black, you got to give 120 or 110%.
Yeah, above and beyond.
That's what above. We got to go up, over, and beyond. And I feel like you get to a place where there's burnout. That's you feeling like you might have that unworthiness because you feel like you didn't gave 110%, and you might still not be valued for systemic reasons that you can't control. Do you feel like the statement that we've made for generations, we have to give 110%, is divisive?
In some ways, yes, but I also think like there's some truth in it. You know that our ancestors, parents, didn't tell us that just for fun,
just to scare us,
right? Like they were preparing us for what we may, what we're likely to experience when we step out into the real world, into the professional spaces. I do think that also contributes to like perfectionism in some way too, where we got this message like you got to work twice as hard, you got to give 110%. And what we heard is I got to be perfect in order to move ahead, in order to be seen, in order to be acknowledged. Now we're battling that.
Well, we definitely battling that. Do you think that there is or from your experience, or just just throwing it out there? I'm throwing a lot of questions your way because there's a lot of stuff that I'm interested in to know these things. Do you think that there are such things as a positive trait that can be harmful?
Ooh, I think so. Like too much of anything can be like bad or negative.
You can be overly loyal. Loyal.
You sure can. I have some clients that maybe they've been at their job 10, 15 years and they are just so reluctant to move on. I'm like, your loyalty, it's admirable. And it's killing you.
Yeah.
Right? Like this job is toxic. The culture is toxic. You're not seen. You're not being promoted. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So I do think, too much of anything
can be bad. Yeah, the job and the workplace thing I feel like is key because different generations, there's perceptions that different generations handle the workplace differently now. I think I'm like in the middle of I was born in 96. So I'm like a little bit I'm right between.
Millennial, right?
Yeah, who knows? I'm somewhere in between. So I kind of I'm in between. And so with that, like I know that the people younger than me and the people even in my generation, like a lot of my friends, they be on to the next. Put their time in. And most of the jobs I've had too, outside of the radio, worked for a year and a half, did my time.
Yeah.
Cool. Out of there. Got my experience. Y'all got what y'all needed from me too. I'm out of there. You know what I'm saying? It's time to dap you up. Because sometimes you do see the loyalty to companies, and at least my grandmother, I know she was at the place she was at for decades. But it was a different day and age. Time. So, of course they had to do those type of things just because of the day and age they were in. Yeah. And so it's a little bit different for us. Not saying that, because a lot of times people be like, the older people, they was weak. No, they weren't. I don't think that they was weak.
I wouldn't say weak.
Yeah, they're not weak at all. Yeah. I just think that the circumstances that they were, the cards that they were dealt were very different than what we are. For sure. More opportunities out. But with that, a lot of times people do fall into being at a company for forever because they're scared to take that leap of faith. And these companies do not care. They do not care about you, especially these corporations.
Oh my God.
They will let you go.
Instantly.
And there's no work-life balance either.
They don't care what you have going on.
They don't.
No.
They want you to eat, sleep, and breathe the company.
The whole, everything, which is toxic. It's toxic. But I do think, I would agree that older generations, they definitely, it was a different time. They didn't have as many opportunities. There wasn't as much, DEIs. It's still a thing, but it definitely wasn't a thing then. Yeah. So it was more of I have to get in where I fit in. If I got my foot in the door, I need to just stay, keep my head down, keep my job. Where now, we have options. We are like, no, you're not gonna
do
pay me pennies. You're not gonna demand all of my time and think I'm just gonna stay. Yeah, we care much more about the environment and the culture.
Yeah.
I just want to put out there, NSPN cares about its employees.
Oh, you do? Well, fly us out so he put the mic down when I said let's fly us out somewhere. Because I don't think there's really a such thing as work-life balance. Well, I mean, I think it is, but I mean, when I say that, I think that from a job's perspective, they think them sending you home after you didn't work 8 hours, and then they also, want you to come back for a little happy hour. Yeah. That's not mandatory, but it's mandatory.
Right.
That's how they get you.
Not mandatory, but it's highly suggested.
Yeah, it's highly suggested. Then when you don't come,
it looks bad.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw off your structure, but me and my wife were talking about that. Me and my wife were talking about the fact that it's like we're living two separate lives because of work. You know, so like with work, it's that's literally majority of our days are dealing with work, and we get a little bit of time with each other.
That work-life balance is crazy. Because I feel like I work a lot too, and it's like it's hard sometimes to manage.
It sure is.
Like,
that was another reason I wanted to homeschool, is because I'm like, I don't want to send my kids to school all day, and then by the time you guys get home, we only get like 3 or 4 hours of waking time together. Then we're going to bed, waking up in the morning just to rush out the door and do it again. Yeah, like that didn't sound like fun. Yeah,
that doesn't. I want to switch back to relationships that we talked about earlier. Is it healthy for people to share their ups and downs about their romantic relationship with friends and family?
Oh, I feel like, again, everything is so subjective. So it can backfire, right? Because maybe now your friends and family, they have this.
We don't like them,
right? Like my best friend, she's like, "Hey, don't tell me nothing, because once I will hate them forever. I will hate them even after you forgive them. I'm still mad."
Yeah.
So it could backfire. You know, like we may be more likely to forgive and to move on. But then they're still stuck. Also, typically when we're venting about like negative things. So if I'm only talking about my relationship to you guys in a negative way, then like
that's all
you're gonna be by it, right? That's all you know. You don't know about all the sweet things and all the other things, because I don't necessarily need to vent about those things. I got those things,
right?
But this negative stuff, that's what I need to process. Also, if it's a friend, sometimes that can be like considered emotionally cheating. Why are you talking to them about it? Especially if you're not talking to me about it. You're having a conversation about us with somebody else. Why aren't we talking about that? Like, this is where we're going to resolve that issue between us. Why do you feel like you need to include somebody else?
So it's not like the emotional cheating is like a great...
But like don't give the internet that word. Then they're going to take it and run. So I didn't say it. Right. I didn't know. It's going to be the next thing.
That's crazy. I understand that's a thing.
Yeah.
In my head, I felt like it might be deeper conversations. Like if you running and telling... I guess that is. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, like
you kind of run it in. Like it does start there, where you're like,
Mm-hmm.
instead of telling that person, but what if you're telling that person, and then you also still going in?
I guess
like I didn't tell somebody, but you're not picking it up the way I want you to. Now I got to tell somebody.
I got to tell somebody else, right?
That's gonna listen.
So I guess it just depends. Like if it's a guy, if it's a guy friend, then cool. If it's a girlfriend, cool. But I don't know, when you start to cross, genders and things like that, it could get messy. And so just depending on what your partner is comfortable with, always thinking like, if my partner was on this call, if this was a 3-way call, would they want me saying, like, how would they feel? Am I saying too much? Is this person, low key, just saying that my partner's horrible and like, well, you should leave him. Why are you doing that? Like, okay, like, what? You're not supporting me. You trying to get with me. Yeah. So it just depends.
Do you feel like therapy is for everybody?
Yes, literally. Yeah. I can't think of one person that should not go to therapy. Like literally one person. Everybody should go.
Advantages would be just to have someone to
have someone to kind of talk to, especially in the Black community. We might share something with our mom, and by the time you hang up, she done told everybody.
She told the whole group chat.
Yeah, you like,
I'm happy my mom not like that, but I know a lot of people's parents.
That was confidential. So if for nothing else, you get to have a confidential conversation. Also, friends and family are more apt to tell us, what we want to hear, or to sugarcoat things. And not saying that therapy is just blunt, but like your therapist is more likely to hold you accountable and be like, hey, hold on now.
Yeah.
You could have handled that better. You could have did different in that situation. You also learn about yourself, like why maybe you are more reactive to certain things, why you may avoid certain things, so that you know how to move forward so that you can achieve your goal. But yeah, like therapy is literally for everybody.
I like that.
Yeah.
I had one of my friends, so I always ask my friends questions too. And so I was like, look, I got a therapist coming today. Yeah, I got some questions. And so one of my friends had, we kind of touched on it a little bit about that emotional intelligence, and maybe can you be a little bit, her question was really mainly on, can you be already woke enough to feel like you don't need therapy? It's kind of how she worded it. Like, can you feel like you know your trauma and you know your stuff and you good? Is that healthy though?
I think so. I mean, if your trauma is not interfering with like your daily functioning, so you're sleeping, you're eating, your focus, if you're able to walk around and not like keep looking over your shoulder and being all jumpy, things like that, then yeah, like maybe you work through it on your own, which is possible. A lot of people do. Therapy really, it's for everybody, but definitely if whatever you have going on is getting in the way of you living your life.
Yeah.
Relationships, communication, you can't focus at work, you're sleeping too much or you're not sleeping enough, it's keeping you up at night. Then it's like, okay, it's time to seek some help. But not everybody, will need that professional intervention.
Okay. Well, I thought you were going to say, yeah, everybody should at least dabble. I tell people they should at least try it.
Yeah.
That's how normally, like, with my friends, I'm like, just try it.
Just try it.
Because you mentioned being proactive. When I tried therapy, I didn't necessarily need one.
Yeah.
I feel like I've never really had any crazy things happen in my life enough to be like, oh, no, I need this.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to keep elevating. It's how I looked at it. So bringing on going to massages monthly, and then also having a therapist is something I was like,
part of the wellness plan.
Yeah, so that was my wellness plan, because I'm like, each level I go up, I gotta make sure that I'm cool, and taking care of myself.
Yeah.
So I felt like
it's nice to just check in. I tell people therapy can be kind of like your physician, where you check in. Well, doctors, most people go like once a year. So you want to go a little more often than that. Maybe you go like monthly and then you kind of, quarterly, just things like that. But it's nice to check in because maybe you think you're fine, but you're not.
That's what I was going to say.
It's like, what's your definition of fine? You're like, well, I have 5 cups of coffee in the morning.
That's
and then,
crazy.
I work all day and I never see my friends. And my kids would say that I'm a little irritable. And it's like, okay, well, this does not sound like fine.
Right. Yeah, it sounds crazy.
Yeah. So just kind of, are you though? Let's check in and see.
When you see TV shows, you see a perception of therapy. See the big couch.
I know they lay on
the tissue.
couch.
I never really done that. I wish I did. Most of my people, they had like I had one that was on Zoom, and it was cool. It was during the pandemic, so I didn't really get a chance to like really interact,
chill out.
And then my the other one that I had switched to that was actually in person. She had kind of like a couch, real cool. I never really. I want to redo that and relive.
Well,
that.
like that chase where you just like lay back.
Like girl, let me tell you about my job today.
My shoes off. Yeah,
I didn't. Yeah, just like kick back. I should say. I think I almost lost my question. See? Brought it back though.
There it is.
On those movie screens, TV screens, you see them in the big couch laid out chilling. You always also see some people calling their therapist.
Yeah.
Throughout the day.
Yeah.
Now, in my head, I'm like, oh, that must be, you know what I'm saying, 6-figure type of.
Your therapist on retainer? Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, your therapy be calling, because I watch Suits. And so on Suits, the one guy called his therapist every time something go wrong.
Yeah, no.
Is there a balance?
There for sure is. I do encourage my clients to like text me between sessions, like if they need something.
Oh, that's tight.
But I communicate that, don't always expect a response.
Yeah, of course.
You might text me, I'm in the middle of the grocery store, I'm doing something.
With the family.
But sometimes it's just like, hey, JaMeshia, just want to let you know that like, I did this. Or, ooh, don't let me forget in our next session, I want to talk about, X, Y, and Z. This thing happened today. I want to make sure that, we touch on this because I don't see you for another week or so. But we're not having like full-fledged,
You're like, girl,
therapy.
Let me tell you about what my boss just
most
did.
Of the time it's just like a check-in, or if they need like an emergency appointment and I don't have anything available, then I'm like, shoot me a text and I'll see like if there's something on the back end that I can do for you. But no, like boundaries. Cause I tell them like, hey, I don't want to be like, I don't want to be like you need to talk to JaMeshia. Like it's great, but I want you to have like other supports.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to call me or if it's an emergency, did you call 2 or 3 people before you called me? Did you reach out to your supports? And then, I was towards the bottom of the list.
Yeah. And in my head too, the fact of going to therapy is also because you want to like empower yourself to feel like you can deal with it yourself.
Yeah.
Not saying that you don't need to call somebody every now and then, but like you can't figure it out yourself.
If you're constantly relying on me,
then that's not healthy either. Because then what if you on a sabbatical, you go for 6 months,
and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, like then what's gonna happen is like now
you're scrambling. So like you need to be self-sufficient for sure.
Be self-sufficient and don't overuse the word gaslighting or narcissist. Hang those words up, please. Well, I greatly appreciate your time. Yeah. Is there anything that you want to like mention or cover that we have not touched? Because I want to talk about grief. We touched on that. We talked about relationships. It's so much more that of course I could have went down the web.
Mental health is my jam, but I think we did a good job just touching on everything. I guess what I would do is just encourage people try it. Try it. And I don't mean just go one time, like really try it. Like a good 2-3 months if you going, weekly or bi-weekly to see, what comes up. Because maybe there is something that you're just not aware of. Or maybe there is something that you've normalized. And then when you sit down, your therapist is like, okay, like that's not normal. Yeah, like that's not healthy. Let's talk about that. Even though you've been this way your whole life, like let's work on that. So yeah, just encouraging people to try. In therapy, it's kind of like dating. So you might not like your first therapist, So if that second session the vibes aren't there, then like feel free to move on until you find like someone that's a good fit. Sometimes it takes a couple times before you find your person. Yeah.
Okay. And for those people that are like, you know what, I like JaMeshia. I'm trying to, I'm going to reach out to her. I want to reach out to her. Maybe they want to book you for something. Maybe they want to try the yoga, because I definitely want to try the yoga.
Move your body. Let's do it.
I want to try that too. Yeah. But any of that, how can they get in contact with you?
So my social media handles, I have like TikTok and Instagram. Is Talk to JaMeshia. And then my
therapist
website
is on TikTok. I like that.
My website is thrivingintent.com. So that's how you can schedule. You can reach out. You can shoot me an email. My contact information is there. If you want to do a consultation, before booking, that's also available. But yeah.
All my perfectionists, tap in with her.
Yes.
About to be me too. To make sure we on our P's and Q's, but not too much.
Not too much.
Have that balance. Have that balance.
There it is.
I do greatly appreciate you for taking the time.
This is fun.
Yeah, I'm finna self-reflect too. He is too. The toes out. Talk about homeschooling a little bit. But make sure you guys tap in next week to see who's on the FA Hustle.